Welcome to the #1 African podcast in New York. My name is DJ Smoo. A lot is happening in New York. The weather has been amazing. It's been raining. It's been a bit windy, a bit cold. But what is exciting is that this weekend, all South Africans are out here. We're out here to support our big brother, to fly the South African flag even higher and be screaming and being loud. The Black Coffee Show is happening tomorrow at the Madison Square Garden, and I'm not alone. I'm with my brother, NOTA.
You gotta say MSG.
MSG.
Yeah, at the Garden.
At the Garden, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, about over a decade, almost 2 decades ago, we watched the Fade to Black DVD, Jay-Z filling up the Madison Square Garden. Tomorrow, Black Coffee is doing it. How does that make you feel?
Well, I mean, other than how it makes me feel, I think that all South Africans should be proud, you know, that South African music has gotten to the level where South African music is now taking center stage at an arena like MSG. I mean, there's many other things that have gone. Trevor Noah did a show at MSG, you know, so South African comedy has hit that stage. And South African music, the entire South African music fraternity as a whole should be very proud. I think personally, it's basically affirming for a young child that was inspired to follow on in the musical journey in Coffee's footsteps, your footsteps, and the footsteps of many others that have walked that path. Is like, you know, we stand on the shoulders of giants, you know, and I'm very proud to be South African at this very moment, you know. I cannot wait. I'm super excited. I mean, it was nice to see our Swati sister,
UncleWaffles,
you know, put South African music on center stage at the dance mecca, the Brooklyn Mirage, you know, with her first sold-out show there at King's Hall. And now, you know, the GOAT. Every time you talk about Black Coffee in New York, oh, do you know Black Coffee? Oh, he's the GOAT. They don't say yes. They say, oh, he's the GOAT.
I realize how dope he is and his greatness and his impact to the world. Just before COVID-19, he gladly invited me to come with him to Coachella. That's when that's the first time I was playing in Coachella, I think. I was with him the whole time, backstage, dressing room. I was with Oskido, by the way. Shout out to Oskido, the OG. He's also around this weekend. They actually have a party tonight. Yeah, we'll talk about it. And shout out to my sister, Shijay Zandi. Black Coffee exposed me to the superstar side of Coachella.
He had a trailer.
Dressing rooms. His trailer was next to Jamiroquai's trailer.
Dressing room.
He exposed me to Beyonce's trailer. He gave me that experience with Oskido. We were all together. If you go back my Instagram, you will see. But I just wanted to big him up and say, only then I realized how big he was when we were moving around in that golf cart at the entire event. Japanese people from all over the world who had come to the concert, people from Germany, who were just coming, screaming, coming to take pictures with him, asking for autographs. And I was like, yo, we know Coffee is global, he's big, but it's another story to be on the ground with him and experience it from people all over the world going crazy over him. So we're so proud of you, my brother. I can't wait for tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, even for me in my musical journey as I've traveled around the world, you know, when I say I'm from South Africa, oh, Black Coffee's from South Africa. So, you know, that's a big platform. And we mentioned it when we spoke about, you know, him on a previous episode that we did, the one that we did with Mansa Main, if you don't remember. And I was saying, you know, that's how big, you know, of a figure he is, especially for South African music and dance music as a whole. Oh, you want more water?
No, I'm just putting water there in case you want water.
Oh, yeah. No.
Because people need to understand Mofa is become props here. So it's not like we drink Mofa every episode. We are realistic about how we market or advertise our products. Yeah. We're not trying to make the public believe that we're always drinking Mofa in every episode, because that's not realistic. It's not like you're drinking energy drinks all the time, but you'll always see a can of Mofa.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. And we actually drink water more than anything else, because water is life. Shout out to Tyler.
Hey, Tyler's killing it. I'm proud of you, Tyler. Guys, go back to a Massive Metro interview when Tyler was still brand new in the game before COVID-19. And everything that she spoke about then, NOTA, she's manifested it. It's happening in her career. She was still brand new. It was one of her first interviews. She had just released one of her first singles. She was just starting out her career.
A breakout single.
Right now, she is, I think, the highest streamed Amapiano artist coming out of South Africa, if I'm not mistaken.
She's got the highest streamed song of the year for any South African artist. She's already done over 26 million streams on Spotify with her latest single, Water. Yeah, so it's one of the biggest South African songs on Spotify, and it's finally climbing the South African charts, you know. South Africans have had a delayed response or a delayed reaction to it, but, you know, they're catching up. It's finally in the top 20. It's also in the top 100 on the Apple Music chart in the United States as well, and, you know, to see her doing well, you know, she had a cameo at the UncleWaffles show as well. She did one song and everyone was screaming for an encore. But, you know, it wasn't her show. So, you know, that little cameo, though, everyone was singing word for word. Two Bunnies also got onto the stage after UncleWaffles and after the Tyler cameo, which was, you know, really great. They also had a nice, great show. And yeah, I think the anticipation and the build-up to the MSG show, to see South African music having grown at that level. You know, when I arrived, I already knew that when I got here to New York, I already knew that there's an MSG show happening on the 7th of October. So I was already aware of that, and I wanted to track the progress of our music and also to time my trip so that I'm able to see all of it, you know, before the show happens, what's happening with South African music in this market, especially in New York, to influence in whatever way I can influence. And then to also see the GOAT, you know, witness him at his height. I think this is probably his biggest show. And not many DJs get to the level of MSG, you know, in general. There are a lot that have gotten to that level, but all of them, you know, are global GOATs. And to have a South African DJ also on that stage, and for him to bring along, you know, our sister Ubusi, you know, is really big. To bring along Monique Bingham as well. Major League DJs will also be playing there, you know. Shorta will be there as well. I know they had a typo on the first poster where they wrote his name as Shona, but Shorta will be there as well, and he's 1/3 of the group that
Shana
Coffee started with Demo, Shorta and BLACKCOFFEE. They were a group called Shana. You know, I know this stuff. You know, I know I'm a young cat, but we grew up to you guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, trust me, I know.
I listen to Jay-Z's lines a lot, and even on the last verse that he had with Khaled, Lil Wayne and Rick Ross, when he talks about bringing his homies, you know, up. Yeah. Basically sending the message that as you climb up, it's always nice to, you know, come up with some of the people you came up with. Yeah. I think it's one of the most amazing and noble things that Coffee has done. Recently, a couple of weeks ago, he was with DJ Melon at High in Ibiza. Mm-hmm. That was great to see him, you know, bring him along. He's brought in DJ Kabila, he's brought in Transmix Soul. You know, he put him on that stage. He works with China now. We all came up together. Shout out to China who travels with Coffee. I think they're in partnership in business as well. For me, it's so nice that as we rise, we never forget where we come from. And those people that we started out with, we sort of bring them alongside the journey and say, come and experience this with me. As I was saying, I've also experienced it when he brought me along on a trip to Coachella, and the entire experience, I was there with him and getting first-class treatment. And not only once, he's brought me along on some of his shows more than twice or thrice. The other time, it was here in New York. I forgot what club it was. We were with Akon. And we went into studio with Akon. We were recording some music there. You know, he just hit me up because he saw me on Instagram. Oh, you're in NYC. I'm around, bro. Let's link up. And I love that type of spirit. And as an OG and as a Grootman, I hope that spirit trickles down to the new generation to bring each other along.
That's the way it is. In the words of the late, great Lucky Dube, be good to the people on your way up the ladder because you'll need them on the way down. and I guess on the way down, it's not like that you're down for, but once this life is over, there are people that stand on top of your casket and let it down, and the people that you were good to on your way up the ladder, those are the people that lay your casket down when you have to return to your maker. And, that's something that needs to be ever present in your mind as you go through life's journey, is that this experience that we all share as mere mortals, is temporary, and it's passing, it's fleeting, and it's about the effect that you have on people while you're alive that matters the most, and also to be grateful for the gift of life, and to be given such a great life, no matter what the challenges are. I think even greater than that is like the level of inspiration for any kid. I mean, where's he from? He's from Guamapumulo, ne?
I know that he's got links in KZN and Eastern Cape.
Yeah, so his family is from Umtata, but he grew up in KZN. I think he went to UKZN as well. So for all the people that are studying music at UKZN, he's one of your alumnus. And while you're there, wherever you are, dreaming about, being legendary, that even from South Africa, which is at the bottom of the world, literally, you can make it to the greatest heights. Like literally, after South Africa, there's nothing except for Antarctica, and there's no people on Antarctica that aren't scientists or researchers. So, we're from the bottom of civilization, you can rise beyond the circumstances that you come from, and that's true testament to that. He's risen beyond the hopes of anyone that might have first started believing in him. I don't think anyone that supported him when he first started out had any inkling that this is what his career would materialize into, and he's always had a bigger vision for himself. He's always seen himself doing things that other people thought were impossible. I mean, one of his first international tours, wasn't even supposed to happen. It was supposed to be a tour for DJ Cleo, and he took that opportunity with both hands and ran with it, and he went on to even soar to even greater heights. And I remember when Cleo was being asked about this, he said, I don't feel like he stole my opportunity. I mean, like, he had an opportunity and he took it where I could have not taken it, and a lot of people have laid a brick or helped him in his foundation and building, and to see him bring a lot of them along with him and onto that great stage, to share the moment with him is an inspiration and is a model for what we wish to see from the artists that are following in his footsteps,
While we're still on that conversation, I think we can't only celebrate the Grootman or Black Coffee without celebrating some of the unsung heroes that have been working very hard in all these years in bridging the gap between South Africa, Africa as a whole, and here. I know there's a whole lot of others, but for specifically South Africa, specifically for as far as South Africa is concerned, I want to big up J Zandi, my sister Zandi. She's got a party tonight with Oskido. She's been a part of the culture for many years. She's one of the first people to bring me to New York almost 20 years ago. When I was still a young up-and-coming DJ. She has been bringing everybody here, the DJ Tiras, the Cleos, anybody that has been big over the past decade or two from South Africa. She's been very instrumental in bridging the gap and bringing all of those entertainers to America and NYC.
She brought MSG here not too long ago.
And Dineo.
Yes, exactly.
The actual trip that a lot of people say Mrs. Dineo was fired for when she had just come from here. She was invited by Uzandi. And she started her own Chisanyama event that she does every Easter in America. Those are type of the
another one in Florida now.
Is it?
Yeah, in next month.
Those are the type of stories of people we don't know about because they're not celebrities, but who become so brave and say, I'm going to start a brand new life in another country. I'm going to build this hustle. I'm going to have a long-term vision. And then she's been able to do it over these years. So I just wanted to give you your flowers, Zandi. And looking forward to your party tonight. We're together, no Grootman, Oskido.
We need to have her here on the show. And we need to have all of these people on the show. I mean, people from all over Southern Africa, not just from South Africa. I think South Africans forget that, you know, we are the bigger country within our region. From a population perspective, we are the more developed economy, more developed market. So we are the beacon for our region. So there are people from Botswana, there are people from Namibia, there are people from Zimbabwe, especially a lot of the events that you're seeing, Amapiano events that are happening here, masterminded and put together and organized by our brothers from Zimbabwe, from Zambia, from Mozambique, and we're all together as a region from Tanzania, the whole entire Southern African region, from the Democratic Republic of Congo, you know. As a region, we need to start unifying our vision for our continent as well. You know, we need to start thinking regionally, and we need to also appreciate the contributions that we all make to one another's economies, you know. Malawi, you know, all of us. I don't think there's a building construction project that doesn't have brothers from Mozambique or Malawi plying their skills in South Africa. I don't think there's a mining project that doesn't have people from Lesotho, people from Zimbabwe, you know, going to the belly of the earth to take out the gold that we supply the world with that keeps our economy running. There aren't, you know, any conservation projects in South Africa that don't have a lot of Namibians involved, because that's also an industry that they do very well in. And we're all in this together. I mean, as rich as South Africa is, we've also got another Southern African sister state, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and we don't have iPhones without the minerals that are mined from there. We don't have battery power. You know, we don't have the cobalt that is needed for a lot of the technology that we are using to connect, to share our stories, to share our history, and to chart a path for the future of Africa. So, you know, with a lot of the frustrations that we have in our governments, in our states, I'd like to think that as a people we are united and we are committed to seeing one another do better and to improving our respective nationhoods. You know, the people of South Africa want to see Zimbabwe prosper. You know, that's why they're so supportive of the political reform that the people from Zimbabwe are calling for. Our people from South Africa want to see Malawi prosper. You know, that's why we're so intrigued by the developments there and in their democracy. Our people from South Africa want to see Mozambique prosper. I mean, Mozambique did a lot, made a lot of sacrifices. The previous regime, the apartheid government, downed the plane of Samora Machel, you know, because of his support for the struggle for liberation in South Africa. You know, they paid the ultimate price. They lost one of their own liberators because he got himself involved in our struggle in South Africa as well. The people of Namibia, we were once one country. You know, the day I was born, South Africa and Namibia were one country. When I was 1 day old.
Then it became Southwest Africa.
It became
swap.
Yeah. So, you know, German Southwest Africa, you know, was part of South Africa until I was 1 day old. And I remember I'm kidding. But when I was 1 day old, that's when
those who get the joke get it, because you know you'll trend. Those people make you trend in South Africa.
Yeah.
Like, you told your dad not to. You questioned your dad about voting for the ANC at the age of 4.
Yeah, I did. You know, I've questioned my dad about many things. You know, and you know, I guess I was very young at the time. So when you're young, you question your father when you're old, you understand your father.
When you're young, you question your father. When you're old, you understand your father.
Yeah.
There's another quotable that you threw, I think, on the previous episode, and I got a lot of comments saying, I think it was a comment about a lie. What did you say about a lie?
I say, if you're looking for answers, any lie will do. But if you're looking for the truth, no lie will do.
Danko.
Yeah.
That's NOTA, the authority.
Yeah.
It's been incredible being around and just witnessing the era that we are in and just the energy coming out of the South. I experienced UncleWaffles for the first time at the Revolt Music Conference, which has now evolved into being Revolt World.
I also experienced UncleWaffles for the first time in New York.
Yeah? Oh, okay. How beautiful is that? Like, I saw a post, something on her Instagram, and saying just 3 years ago, she had only, she said before COVID, or she said 3 years ago, she said I only had 3,000 followers. And then now she just can't fathom what is happening into your life. And I think that type of a message should be going out to you as well, wherever you are, that you could be looking at yourself now and saying life is tough, but if you don't give up and you just keep on pursuing that dream, just hardly 3 years from now, you never know where your life can be. 5 years from now, you never know where your life can be. So it was great to see her there. I watched her entire show. I want to give props to also legendary Missy Elliott for, giving her some words of encouragement backstage, showing her love in her own city in Atlanta, and just embracing her, taking pictures with her. And it was not a celebrity moment, but it was from a legend and a big sister type of energy.
I saw you there.
Yeah, I was around. I'm around. Now, America, so we play ground here. But I want to say big up to Afrobeats, because Afrobeats' success positively influences the success of Amapiano. And the success of Amapiano coming out of the South positively influences...
I've got a bone to pick there with a lot of South Africans.
Okay, and then I'll give it to you just now. I wanted to say that music also positively influences, or let me say gives South Africa a lot of eyeballs and attention from the world, where anything that we are all doing, all of you guys out there hustling, whether you're a dancer, whether you're a script writer, you're a karateka, a comedian, you're not only just speaking to South Africans only anymore. You can see the whole world is looking at us, and it's partly majority of the time is because of the success of our music, which is Amapiano. And also right now, that's why we are here. We're celebrating Black Coffee. So it just shows you the amount of impact and race relations and doors that the music industry can open. Then I know that those type of conversations take you way back to Abo Mama Letambulu, Abo Tata Kaifa Semenya, Abo the late great Brahuma Sigela, Abo Mama Miriam Makeba, etc. Now I understand what they had to do in terms of using music as that tool to bring about the attention from the world about the previous regime, the apartheid government.
I mean, so I never read Still Grazing, right? But while I was planning to come here, like for many, many nights, I think the whole book, my wife had read that book to me. And while she was reading, I was just imagining, okay, I'm planning to go to New York, and, there's going to be a lot happening when I get there. And I was inspired by that, So I feel like even my trip here, my time here, we're following in those great footsteps, And they had a very big role to play in articulating the struggles that the South African and African people were going through as a whole, Tatu Huma Sugela was very instrumental in the progression of the late great Fela Kuti's career, and they spent a lot of time together, and he speaks about it in that book. If you guys ever have the opportunity to read any autobiography, make sure that one of those autobiographies is Still Grazing by Brahima Sigel. And he is the first African artist in 1968, right, to top the Billboard 200 albums chart under an independent label, his own independent label. That's a feat that still hasn't been repeated. I don't know how many years it is later now. It's probably 55 years ago, right? It hasn't been repeated. And our music is is crossing borders. And at the time that, he was coming here, he connected with a whole lot of other South Africans. Mamire Makeba had already been here, and she basically was his soft landing. And now that I've been here, my greatest concern, I won't call it a disappointment, even though it is, but I'll just say it's a concern, is that, it's our brothers from Ethiopia, from Somalia, from Eritrea, from Ghana, from Nigeria, all the other countries outside of South Africa that have been the ones to give me a soft landing. And even from the UncleWaffles show, she needed a soft landing. She needed the crowd to pull through. And I'll say like 95% or 90% of that crowd were people from outside of Southern Africa, or outside of South Africa, I'll say. And the rest of the crowd, maybe 5% of them were South Africans and 5% of them were Americans. And it's something that we need to look at, and we need to look at ourselves in the mirror as South Africans. Do we support our own? Do we support fellow Africans? Do we support fellow South Africans? And if we do not, what is it about us that makes those like us from the same country as us repulsive to us in some way? The very next day after the UncleWaffles show, I was at a pub where people were watching rugby. And I was asking people just in general, like, okay, why weren't you there last night? Why weren't you there last night? And everybody gave me every excuse and every reason under the sun.
South Africans you're talking about?
Yeah.
South Africans in New York?
Yeah, South Africans in New York. So we were watching the rugby. There were some that were there, so I wasn't speaking to them, but like the greater majority weren't there. And, their reasoning and their responses were just so unsatisfying for me. It's like I just couldn't understand what it was, because it's very important that we show the commercial viability of the culture that we're trying to export. And that protects us when we're trying to exploit our own culture, so that we actually know how much it's valued at. I was on a live with Everything SA Music as well. And, they took a clip of that, and then people in the comments were saying, oh, you guys are pocket watching. We're not pocket watching. We are quantifying. We're telling people this is the monetary value of our cultural, output.
Bring us up to speed. Pocket watching what?
They're saying, no, you guys are counting how many tickets were sold, how much that means in terms of how much was grossed. When Beyonce does a concert, they tell you, it's even on the news. They tell you, okay, this is how much Beyonce grossed at this show. It's a commercial exploit. So we need to quantify it, and we need to qualify it for the kids that are watching at home. There's so many kids, I'm sure even you studied electrical engineering. Why? Because you could not quantify how much DJing would make you, how much entering into the music industry would make you. When your mother asked you, what is this DJing bringing to you? You couldn't say, oh no, as a DJ, this is how much money you make. Or this is the potential of the money that you can make. So we need to be able to quantify and qualify that. And that means that we need to be supporting us who are privileged enough, out of the 10% of South Africans that even have passports that can leave the country, or do leave the country or travel. We need to show the value of our cultural production, and the only way to do that is to support. We need to come to the shows. Whether you like the artist or not, you don't need to be a fan. You need to be a patriot. You know what I mean? And if you don't do that, then the entire ecosystem suffers, because the music is just the first step. That draws people in. That's the first point of contact, And then after that, they want to know more, because there's an entire culture that is underlying that music. There's an entire narrative. There's an entire history of a people that is part of the tapestry of that music that people enjoy, And as they unfurl the threads of that, they discover more about us, and they're more inclined to support more than just the music, whether it be the film, whether it be the fashion. I mean, you've broken one of your rules of wearing local brands. You're wearing Broken Planet.
Yeah.
But at least...
Which you put me on to yesterday.
it's you know, it's from people of color, so at least, you know, you're supporting people of African descent as well. But when you in Rome, you have to do as the Romans do. When in New York, you know, you have to do some New York stuff. So Broken Planet is, you know, one of the emerging brands as well.
But let me also mention that I'm also showing love to the community of creatives that you introduced me to, who have got their own advertising agency and a pop-up store in the middle of New York. And Broken Planets happens to be one of their clients. Yeah. And when I was given an opportunity to, you know, explain about who I am and what I represent, and in the middle of that introduction and that convo, those few couple of hours yesterday, you ended up having to link me to the guys, and me having to show some form of support to what they're doing. Yeah. I ended up having to pick up the sweater from their pop-up store, which in turn then has created a relationship with not just the young creatives, but a young agency that is doing things in New York, owned by people of color and young people from all over the world who have collaborated in a city like New York. But they're also content creators on the other side. But they also create podcasts as well. So, which brings me back to how I've learned how the Muslim community do business in South Africa. And I'd like to say thank you once again. I'd always give you guys so much props on how I've learned the different practices in doing business in that space. Little things like having to have a meal. Little things like having to not just immediately get into the topic of business in a meeting, where people just really are concerned, how are you doing? Why do you do what you do? Why do you want to sell energy drinks? Why are you selling energy drinks? What do you think of the state and the government? What do you think of the political landscape in the country right now? So, you know, where it's a middle of the day type of a meeting where you're thinking you're just going to get in there and it's a meeting and that's that. But over the years, I've gotten to learn so much about different cultures and about different people and how they do business, all of them.
Got lots of water.
With that being said, thank you. With that being said, it's also beautiful to be in a space like New York City where the whole world is at, to be learning about different cultures. It's kind of like when you're in boarding school for the first time. You're meeting kids from other provinces when you are just a Peneplas type of a kid from your own immediate hood, where you had never experienced other kids from other places. You know, you learn so much about culture and about South Africa. That's what happened to me many years ago. But now it's like a new chapter in my life where I'm learning so much. And I just wanted to thank you for making that connection with the Broken Planet agency affiliate.
So that's a Bowery showroom. If you're in New York and you're watching this, go visit them. 57 Stanton on the Lower East Side in Manhattan. And they give a platform for a lot of young and upcoming streetwear brands as well, you know. So check them out. Check out their website. Check them out on Instagram. They also create content. I think you even created content with some of their content creators yesterday.
Yeah, actually, down the road there's the Smash Burger, and I heard that, you know, they make the best burger in New York City. I didn't know.
Well, hey, listen.
It's arguable, right?
You listen. There's 7th Street Burgers. And there's Smash Burgers, and it's war. So I'm not going to say which one is my favorite, because, you know, I still got to walk these streets. You know, if you're a visitor, you can choose sides, you know, but if you live here, you know, you got to be careful. We're on a podcast that a whole lot of people will watch.
But while we're giving props to people who've been really amazing to us and who've given us a soft landing, we can't say that without bigging up Podcast Central for allowing the Hustlers Corner to do what we're doing in New York City.
No, thank you to Ahmad, you know, our brother. You know, he's done a whole lot of legendary stuff.
Shout out to Tommy.
Thomas Kolongogbona. That means Thomas sees or believes by seeing. That's a saying in South Africa. So if you're called Thomas, you know, you're the one that lives by the maxim, seeing is believing.
And he's believing it. South African boys are doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
At first it was a conversation.
Yeah.
Can we do this in your premises? Can we do a deal? Can we host this podcast? This is who we are.
Yeah.
Thomas is here now seeing it happen. These boys are broadcasting. These boys are getting thousands of views. These boys are talking about Coffee's show tomorrow.
Yeah.
These boys know Coffee. These boys are who they said they are, even bigger than that, because you always downplay your influence in the country, always humble about who you are here in New York. Why is that?
Nah,
Is that how you should move when you're in a place like New York, where you downplay your achievements from where you come from? Or it's about hustling by people knowing who really you are when opening these doors in New York? How do you move? What are some of the advices you can give us?
I'm starting afresh. So everything that I've achieved, it's not about what I've done. It's about what I'm doing, So I'm focused on what I'm doing. And what I'm doing is trying to connect with people, who are also building so that we can build together. Ahmad is a builder. Then my father is a builder as well, So maybe that's why there's some reciprocity in, our relations as well.
Reciprocal energies.
Yeah, exactly. He can see what I'm trying to build. We can see what he's trying to build. And, we're adding building blocks towards a greater vision for what we're doing.
Collaboration over competition.
That's it, and that's basically the message that we're trying to spread. We're trying to show people that you can collaborate. Being competitive doesn't mean that now we need to hate one another. You know what I mean? There is healthy competition. Which brings me to something, that I saw on El Tito's podcast. Let's give a shout out.
Oh, Nasty C's episode? That was nice.
You finally watched it.
And shout out to El Tito for the Cassper episode. So yesterday, Nota put me on to the new Nasty C episode on El Tito. That was dope.
Yeah, okay, clean.
And big up to El Tito. We've got an outstanding recording of our episode to do. So we're going to do one episode, me and El Tito.
Oh, nice.
And we're going to broadcast it on both platforms. Differently.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Well, shout out to you, because when I went there, you delivered me some
more fire, because we were sleeping there next to that other brand. And then you shifted the blame when you were trending for sleeping in a club. You were like,
Red Bull.
Don't mention brands. And then he said you only had one job to do.
Yeah.
And then I was like, as a marketer, guys, just send him some more fire.
And I was awake for that one.
And then more fire.
But that one produced that meme. Joe. And that meme is on any comment. Anytime someone put something shocking, that meme is there. You know what I mean? So
you were still giving me advice about how you move in New York.
Yeah. So I mean, I was watching on the El Tito podcast with Nasty, and he was talking about the competition that they've got with Aries. And he's like, we don't even know, it's petty spaghetti. I like that term, petty spaghetti. Yeah, like his spaghetti is his bed.
Amanza mangan, sure.
I just thought about petty instead of petty. But there's no reason why they shouldn't be collaborating. It's like the fans can't drive a wedge between them. They can compete, but they can collaborate at the same time. The competition can be healthy. And we should have learned from the competition between AKA and Cassper. It's like, all of this beef becomes pointless and a joke when we look at life, as a whole. It's like, how many missed opportunities. It's like Cassper was, even rapping a tribute song to AKA on his
Solomon album.
Yeah.
Big up to Cassper. That's a dope album, bro. And while I'm at it, congratulations to Narcissi as well. Beautiful project, my brother.
Yeah. So, I mean, but now we look back at it, it's like, damn, okay, you guys competed, you beefed, and then you didn't decide to put that behind you and come together and actually make music. Imagine if he could have announced, yo, by the way, I've actually got records that we've got, We were in the studio, we were working on a joint album or something like that, and that's something that I was like really pushing for. And it seemed like a crazy idea because the fans...
When AKA was alive.
Yeah,
So do you think with what happened, they both, and may Kino Soul rest in peace, they both denied us, the fans, an opportunity of joint projects,
they
them
denied
working together?
themselves. Forget us. They denied themselves that opportunity, of being bigger brothers to A-Reese and SEC. Now A-Reese and SEC don't have that good example. And then now the fans are actually denied because it's generational. It's like that beef then created a culture of beef. And what do we get in the end? We don't get collaboration. We get competition to no end. We get petty spaghetti, and it's so unnecessary. So I'm hoping that now that, he's spoken about it publicly as well, and he's shared that, how pointless the beef is, he actually continues to make an effort to actually bring them together. And there's no reason why they can't come together and make music and cut out the noise from the fans who sometimes are just trolling.
And I guess that's why right now Cassper and Nassisi are on tour together.
Yeah, but I mean, Cassper and Nassisi being on tour together is not a recent Nassisi. It's not a special. It's not special,
For me, it is.
Yeah, but you're not a 14-year-old. You're not a 16-year-old. You're not 18-year-old. You're not the future generation that needs to learn from those people that they idolize. So for us, we need to be able to say it might not be important for us, but for the kids that are watching, the young kids who hang on to each and every single word that those two brothers breathe, it's important. You know what I mean? And we need to actually make sure that with our attitudes, we think about those young kids and think about what example are we setting for them. Collaboration over competition. I mean, right now we're talking about the El Tito podcast. Podcasters shouldn't be now scared of mentioning other podcasts, or mentioning something that they saw on another podcast, because now they're in competition and they're not collaborating and they're not seeing that, there's 24 hours a day. No one's recording a 24-hour podcast. No one's recording a 24-hour podcast. So you're not going to podcast and record and then want nobody to watch all the other content that is, out there. You share this audience. We share these audiences. And also we share the aspirations of those that came before us. You know what I mean? We are part of a continuum. And we should never forget that. We are at the stage that we're at right now because other people had to make sacrifices and had to take advantage of the fewer opportunities that they were exposed to that opened the doors for us to have even greater opportunities, and we cannot forget that. And that's what I want to say about, what I'm learning here and the reason for my attitude here. There's a South African brother of mine called Xander Ferreira. And, I sat down with him and he was like, this is a new start. You can start afresh. Like all the things that you had, all the hang-ups you had, all the disappointments you had from people in the past, you can put that aside. You know what I mean? New York is a very big place and there's people from all over the world here. So one thing that you need to have in mind is that you get further by wanting to work with people than you do by wanting to make yourself, We live on an island, Manhattan, but no man is an island here, So that is the one thing about, the change that I've seen in myself. I want to make sure that I open up myself to working with more people, open myself up to having, conversations with more people, open myself up to learning from people I even disagree with. You know what I mean? We don't have to be on one page for us to benefit from one another, and that's the change that I've learned here.
We walk on the shoulders of giants, man, and in recent times, you can't make those statements without giving props to, as we are going to coffee show tomorrow, sisters like Sis Nomzamo Mbata, sisters like Abo Sis Tusombedu, sisters like Abo Terry Pedo, and people like Trevor Noah. Do you think it's necessary for a platform like what we've just created in the heart of New York that comes from South Africa? Right now, Trevor has opened that door. He went mainstream. But do you think there's a space for a podcast to say it is situated in New York and these are the issues that it deals with, but it comes from South Africa authentically? What are your thoughts as far as that's concerned?
I mean, like, just the mere fact that people are here watching us on YouTube and whatever other platform, whether it be on X or any of these platforms, Trevor Noah made that like a viable thing. When the pandemic happened and they had to shut down their studios, the main platform was YouTube, where The Daily Show was, and their audience grew on YouTube. And because of how seriously The Daily Show is taken, when it moved to something that is being watched on YouTube now, it made YouTube get taken seriously. And we're benefiting from that. We're part of the halo effect of The Daily Show moving to YouTube. I mean, Stephen Colbert also then moved his show to YouTube as well. All of these late night show people move their shows to YouTube. So if you're referring to those giants, we've got them to thank for opening up these platforms. You've got people like Russell Brand right now. He's moved to Rumble.
Tucker Carlson,
he's on X, and they gave these online platforms, independent media, they gave it credibility. And those are the giants whose shoulders we stand on right now. So now this show has got even more added credibility. It doesn't matter if it's on YouTube. And the platform has got, opportunities to offer for a whole lot of independent media broadcasters. A whole lot of platforms are now open, and we share these audiences, and we're benefiting from, all the work that has been done by all those people. A whole lot of people are now watching films on Amazon Prime, on Netflix, on Showmax, whatever you name it. Shaga Ilembe is there. The what is it called? The underground train. What is it?
Which underground train?
The Underground Railroad.
Oh, okay.
Is on Amazon Prime. There's many shows that are on Netflix. I mean, our sister Tumi Murake has done many productions that are on Netflix right now. So African film is competing on a global scale on these platforms, and some of the people that have put the work in and given those platforms credibility, given those platforms an audience, are benefiting us right now. And we need to seize the opportunity and also broaden the opportunity. And I think the perspective that we have from South Africa is a very different perspective than the rest of the world has, because we've got the benefit of being on the coast of two oceans. So South Africa is the only country in the world where two oceans meet. So you've got the Atlantic Ocean and you've got the Indian Ocean, and they both meet on our coast, and that means that we've got influences from all over the world. And when we look at South Africa as a rainbow nation, we shouldn't look at it because of the cultural diversity that is native to South Africa, but the cultural diversity that is naturalized in South Africa as well. We've got a large Indian community, of whether it be Hindi or Tamil faith. We've got a large Arab community who are of Islamic faith, from all over the continent. We've got a large European community from everywhere, from whether it be from the Netherlands, whether it be from France, Great Britain. We've got a large mixed-race community that has now naturalized into a colored community, with their own contemporary identity. and that Americans are only now learning of that. In South Africa, we've got coloureds that are not categorized as a lesser, race, but are part of a new contemporary culture that is created by the creolization of, European languages with influences from, the Southeast Asia, from India, the Malay people, and the First Nations people, who are the native South Africans, the Khoi and the San, and all of them make up part of the heritage, or the heritage of the colored people in South Africa, and they bring us all together. Diverse people unite is our country's creed. That's the statement on the national coat of arms. And as South Africans, we need to be a beacon for the human race as a whole. We all share one genome. We're all one human race.
The mitochondrial gene from East Africa, originally from that one black woman in East Africa, right?
So we're all one human race.
They call it the Eve gene.
Yeah. So we have a duty as South Africans to basically exemplify what the world could be, united in our diversity. And a place like New York is, another former Dutch colony, just like South Africa is a former Dutch colony. And when we came together to decide to actually do this podcast here, that was one of the missions, that we had. It's like, okay, let us give a South African and African perspective to the world and use this city as a platform to launch that, because, we've got global eyeballs. And the reason why this will be relevant, or the reason why people will be drawn to this, is because we come from a country where different perspectives are respected and shared, and we don't polarize our political discourse and play a zero-sum game between red and blue, where, one must demonize the other to win favor or to curry favor. We don't demonize one another. We educate one another, and we share our perspectives, and we empathize with one another, and we compromise towards, building better relations with one another. So that's the most important thing that we have to do.
The time at which I saw that a platform like this in the heart of New York is necessary was when, I think, shout outs to Dr. Umar, I think he had made a statement about Mandarin being an official language in South Africa, and how a lot of South Africans sort of dragged him for that. Although
on the Breakfast Club, yeah,
on the Breakfast Club. And then recently as well, when the EFF was celebrating their 10-year anniversary at the FNB Stadium, filling it up with over 100,000 people, Elon Musk's tweet. And obviously, a couple of years before then, when I think AfriForum was doing a media tour all over the world about the farm killings, so-called farm killings that were happening in South Africa.
Genocide, the so-called farm genocide.
So with the recent Elon Musk tweet, that's when I actually confirmed it. I was like, we do need a voice. Not necessarily that speaks for the country, but we do need that voice, because
that speaks for our region.
Yes, and even at a time when the USA American ambassador to South Africa, who's based in South Africa, made a statement about South Africa supplying arms to Russia. There are all these narratives that could be lies, that could be damaging to the country. For instance, just that statement alone, it made the rand lose its value for a couple of weeks, all the way till today. I think the rand is now 19 rands to the dollar, right?
What about the world closing their borders to South Africans?
Exactly. So because we do need a platform like this.
Nation to discover the Omicron variant. How much did we lose there? And all those losses, they're unaccounted for. But a platform like this is also necessitated by the fact that the media needs diversity. And it needs also independence. And we're not supported by some massive corporation or some conglomerate that is trying to spread a narrative as well. So that is also necessary, because the American media landscape is very concentrated. Very few companies own all the big media companies, and small companies cannot compete because they never get to the level of scale where they can make enough money to make themselves a viable, advertising platform. As soon as they start rising to some level of prominence, there's someone that has got enough money to buy them out, and it's money that they cannot refuse because, they've got no guarantee that their business will be a going concern for 5 years or even 10 years. So, they're between a rock and a hard place, and they've got no option other than to, choose security, because there is no security in this media landscape. We've seen a whole lot of platforms coming and going. But what encourages me about us having staying power as well is that we speak to a continent of 1.4 billion people. The challenge that we have is that we don't have people lobbying for this continent. When I was at some of the seminars that were being held on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly a couple of weeks ago, I realized that, Ukrainians have got a large lobby. People from many other countries have got lobbyists that are here, that are trying to get support for, either their political ambitions, get support for their businesses, get support for the investment that is so needed around, the global south. And Africans are not investing in that. Like the Department of Tourism is not spending money on lobbying. They don't have lobbyists in Washington. The Department of International Affairs and Cooperation, or the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, DIRCO, is not lobbying here. They're coming, they're having the free tea and cookies at the UN General Assembly. They're meeting with the big politicians, but they're not meeting with the people that actually keep the economies running, which are the business people, the investors, the media. They're not speaking to them. And therefore, they're having these high-level discussions with people who don't really have an influence on the policies of those nations, and that don't execute on the reciprocity that is needed to foster good relations between nations. Focalistic DJ Maporisa were complaining about how, it's a struggle for them to get visas to travel. It wouldn't be a struggle if we had people lobbying, paying the lobbyists to say, hey, we offer Americans visa-free travel into South Africa. Therefore, can we have some reciprocity? Can we have visa-free travel? Can we have ease of access to visas, and travel documents for South Africans? That is what we need. Venezuela has got lobbyists, and that's why the Venezuelan lobbyists have been able to secure agreements to get temporary working permits for Venezuelans that have come here because of the economic situation in their home country, which has been contributed to by U.S. foreign policy. I mean, the Venezuelans, if their country was as livable as it should be, they're an oil-rich nation, they shouldn't be, crossing rivers and scaling mountains to risk their lives to cross the southern border of the United States and find themselves as refugees, or living in the streets of New York. And they lobby for that. They lobby for that support. Cuban refugees have lobbied for a long time. And that's why the Cuban community have got a home in the United States of America, because there's foreign relations that are happening, even though there's embargoes, economic embargoes that prevent trade between Cuba and the United States. The people don't suffer because of that. The people of Zimbabwe deserve lobbyists, There's so many Zimbabweans that are studying law and a whole number of different courses in the universities here, but there isn't a lobbying body that can hire all these legal minds and get them to lobby for, better sanction conditions, that don't harm the people there. It shouldn't be a situation where over 90% of the babies born at Musina Hospital are Zimbabwean babies because there aren't enough maternity wards in Zimbabwe. And Zimbabwe has got the highest maternal mortality rate in Southern Africa, which is mothers that are dying during childbirth. The country is actually dying. Like, the population growth in Zimbabwe is the lowest in the whole of Southern Africa. In fact, the gap between the Zimbabwean and Zambian population has grown. Those two nations were one nation at some point in time. And Zambia doesn't have sanctions against it. And its population has grown over 20 million. Zimbabwean's population is, staggering between 13 and 14 million right now. And over 4 million of those people don't live in Zimbabwe. So they've got a native population in their country of less than half of the Zambian population currently, and that is shrinking. And that's because Zimbabwean women don't feel comfortable having children because the conditions that their children will live in are unbearable. They won't be able to get medical attention. They don't have facilities for cancer patients, and they shouldn't have to overburden the social services that are being provided to poor South Africans in rural Limpopo and Mpumalanga because they don't have those services within their own country, and we need lobbying for that. And that's the cost of the sanctions, but no one is speaking for that. A country like Israel spends a lot on lobbying, because they are under threat all around their borders, and they spend a lot on lobbying. And that's why they're able to now get visa-free travel to the United States. People from Israel don't need visas anymore to the United States. It was just announced last week because they've been lobbying for that. And African nations don't lobby. So we need to fix that. And we've got a platform like this to actually shed light on that. And we know that these platforms are watched by very influential people. And when we discuss these topics, they then become topics that are discussed in the general public. And then when the general public have a demand, the politicians have to acquiesce to the demands of the public because that's how they secure votes. So don't think that these conversations that we're having are unimportant or things that are peripheral priorities. No, these are very influential conversations and very influential discussions. And these platforms help to change the body politic of our nations. And when we discuss these issues, we bring them to the fore, and the public can then have their own discussion about, what it is that they want. And they cannot know what they want unless they're exposed to it, you know what I mean? And that's why it's important. And we are part of the lobbying effort for the African continent, this platform. And that's why we're here in the financial capital of the world. And we're part of the lobbying efforts for the entire African continent because we are Africans as well, and we are world citizens. So we're part of the lobbying for the entire world.
While you're still at it, your opinions on BRICS that just happened a few weeks ago in South Africa, the summit?
Yeah, the BRICS.
It's just the future.
I mean,
what would it mean, and how would it impact the ordinary person in the street in South Africa?
Yeah, I mean, the rules-based international order has been dominated by the United States of America since the ending of the Second World War. And I think more important than the BRICS summit, right, was the movie Oppenheimer. And we've been living in a mad world, as in our sovereignty as nations is secured by mutually assured destruction. Mad. That's the policy. MAD. And right now, we're moving into a multipolar world again, like we were in the Cold War before the Soviet Union fell. But the thing about these two poles is that there's two of them. It's it's a bipolar world, and we're forced to choose. And I think the influence that South Africa has had in creating multipolarity is by saying, yes, there are two superpowers that dominate the world in China and the United States of America, but we choose neither. We choose both. And that is the third pole, the pole of non-alignment. We are non-aligned. So the BRICS summit precedes the ALGOA summit, which is the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which allows for tariff-free imports of African goods into the United States market, and also allows the United States to benefit from tariff-free exports into the African continent. It's supposed to be a reciprocal agreement, but we found that, or what we see is that African products are not supported in the United States because they are a profit-based economy. And if you import more fire into America via the ALGOA Act, it is not commercially beneficial or beneficial to the American state because they cannot charge tariffs on that. They would rather import Chinese products, which they can then charge tariffs on, and they can make a profit off of the tariffs, than they would import these ALGOA products. So you understand that the opportunity then becomes a disadvantage, because we're not thinking about the profit motive that governs business in this world or in this part of the world, And the BRICS summit is basically an opportunity for China and their military partner Russia to break up the dominance of the American century, which is on its way to ending. We're in the last, it's almost the American century since 1945, I'd say. It's in its last 11 years now, because we're practically in 2024, So in the last decade of the American century, we've seen the Soviet Union collapsing and the Russian military rising again. We've seen China become a superpower with a purchasing power parity GDP greater than that of America, even though the per capita purchasing power parity GDP is smaller than America by 5-1. China is bigger. If the Chinese economy is bigger than the United States economy right now, if you look at purchasing power parity, and not just the raw GDP figure, which is in dollars as well, which gives a bias to America. And because of this dollar-based economy, we are trapped in a cycle of military conquest for commercial exploits. So the military-industrial complex in the United States of America means that they need to constantly be at conflict. They need to constantly be at war so that they can defend the dollar, they can defend the petrodollar, and they can create a dependence on dollars in other weaker economies. And those weaker economies are falling more and more dependent because they don't have debt sovereignty. Now, what debt sovereignty is something that South Africa has, but a lot of other countries don't have. When the government borrows money in South Africa, they borrow it in rands because our Reserve Bank is able to print rands for the government to borrow to pay for things. In other countries, they borrow money in dollars. So just imagine if during COVID, South Africa borrowed all its money in dollars, right, and borrowed $100 million. And now, at the start of COVID, the rand to the dollar was 15. It's now 20. So that debt would have grown not because of interest, but because of the change in currency. And you repay that debt with money that is made within your own economy. So the gross domestic product of South Africa would be then used to pay that debt that is in dollars. But that debt would far exceed what it should be because it's in dollars, because of the difference in currency, and because the money that is being used to repay that debt is in rands. So you'd be using 20 rands to repay a 15 rand debt, excluding the interest. So do you understand the reason for the necessity of BRICS and to create other funding mechanisms that are not going to favor the dollar over countries' own currencies? And what BRICS is now offering is funding for different nations, which is denominated in their own currency. So Brazilians will be able to pay their debt to the BRICS bank in their currency. The Chinese will be able to pay in renminbi. The Russians will be able to pay in their own currency. The Indians will be able to pay in their own currency. And now that they've added Iran, Saudi Arabia, Morocco, Argentina, who are going through a debt crisis right now, a serious debt crisis. If you think that the rand dollar exchange rate, has been bad, you should look at the Argentinian. Is it the Argentinian peso? I think it's the Argentinian peso.
I don't want to end the episode because I'm pressed. I'm going to rush to the loo and let you continue speaking. That's
yeah. So if you look at what's happening in Argentina right now, it's almost cause for them to have some more political change because the inflation rate, food inflation rate, has skyrocketed. And they're falling into the same situation that happened with Venezuela right now, which had hyperinflation, Ecuador, Zimbabwe. And that is mainly because their debt is dollar denominated and it's not denominated in their own currency. So the biggest opportunity that BRICS presents to a lot of the global south is that they'll be able to secure funding in their own currencies and be able to pay back loans in their own currencies and won't suffer from the fluctuations between their currency and the dollar, because the IMF only borrow in dollars, the World Bank only borrow in dollars. And another thing is that they'll be able to get other resources like petroleum, crude oil, in their own currencies as well. And then they won't be dependent on selling their weakening currencies to get dollars so that they can buy oil and petroleum. And oil and petroleum, is one of the largest contributors to inflation, because all logistics are petroleum based. To get things moving from point A to point B takes a lot of gasoline, diesel, whatever the case may be. And our economies are beholden to OPEC currently, and OPEC trades in dollars as well. So now this is going to create a different way in which countries are going to be able to relate to one another, because they'll be forced to now hold more bonds in different currencies. We'll be forced to hold bonds in the Brazilian currency, in the Russian currency, in the Chinese currency, and that raises the value of those currencies as well and gives us more currency stability. So apart from, currency stability, we won't be dominated by the dollar, and we can also reap the benefits of choosing to be non-aligned. So we can trade with both the West and the East. And us having both those options and also being able to benefit from trade with the global South without having to favor one or the other Eastern or Western powers allows us to have better reciprocal relationships with one another. And then we won't have the situation where South Africa is not able to support Pakistan, for example, because Pakistan is currently at odds with the West, or South Africa is not able to trade with Burkina Faso because the West does not recognize the government of Burkina Faso, or Niger won't be able to export their uranium, which is necessary to keep the European economy electrified at their nuclear power plants, because they now need to sell all their uranium in CFCs, which is the French reserve currency for African countries. And now, instead of selling their uranium at 75 cents per kilo to France using CFCs, they're able to sell 75 euros equivalent to CFCs to France. They're able to sell their uranium to Russia for the equivalent of 200 euros per kilo. So now they're gaining even more, and they're able to fight for their country to be, a sovereign that is run by civilians and not a military junta, quote unquote, through their own means and without influence from Paris, and without Macron, using his military to force the hand of the people in either or which way. They've been able to expel the French forces, and soon they'll be able to expel the AFRICOM drone bases that are based in Mali, that are only there because in 2001, September 11th, we were told that 2 aeroplanes crashing into buildings would bring down 3 buildings. That's what we were told. We saw it, and we are unable to investigate what is the true reason why 1,000 or 4,000 people had to die or be injured or have uncurable respiratory diseases to keep the military industrial complex going. And those are the things that are necessitated by needing to have one currency dominant. You don't need to bring down the Twin Towers to justify a war that shouldn't happen if you've got multipolarity. But if you're a unipolar world, you will allow bin Laden to crash planes into buildings, so that you can make that an excuse for demolishing the Twin Towers and, what is it, Building 9 or whatever, Building 3 or I don't know, the third building that just also came crashing down.
I think it's Building 7.
That's the one.
I'm looking forward to recording more content, focusing on different issues. It's an interesting conversation to get into, and it's beautiful that we are finally doing this. We're still getting the hang of it, but I'm excited about this weekend. All of the South Africans that are here, not only to just support coffee. You remember how we were when we were supporting Cassper, filling up all those venues in South Africa. I kind of feel most South Africans who came through who can afford to, including all of those at home who are supporting through their phones, who didn't have the means to pay for that airplane and pay for the hotel and come here and support him in person. What would you like to say to all of those South Africans that are here this weekend?
Yeah, I guess let's do better when it comes to supporting one another and supporting each other. And let's show the world the vision that we had of ourselves when Dr. Nelson Mandela was freed from prison, when he became the president, that we are a unified rainbow nation, and that we're a beacon for the rest of the world to say that, diverse people can unite and do great things. There's no reason for us to destroy the moral authority that Dr. Nelson Mandela gave us. Out of all the great world leaders, he's the one that doesn't have atrocities to his name. You look at Winston Churchill, as much as he was a great leader for the British Empire, he's got a checkered past. You look at Joseph Stalin. You look at Chairman Mao. you look at anybody, Dwight Eisenhower, all over the world, there are leaders of the world that had choices to make for the good of humanity, and a lot of them fell short of what Dr. Nelson Mandela was able to do, and to lead us into a peaceful transition from, separate development enforced by violence and oppression to unified glory that is, espoused by a camaraderie that extends beyond familial relations, beyond race relations, beyond, cultural relations. We're truly a united people in South Africa. And we need to change the narrative, because the rest of the world thinks, and this is a false impression that I've also learned from being in the States, and a lot of Africa also feels this way. I had a sister from Nigeria tell me, "Oh, so you South Africans, you're weak, you're useless, you need to chase away the whites." And I said, no, we don't think like that in South Africa. We love all people. We've got Indian people in our country, we've got Chinese people in our country, we've got white people in our country, and we're not dominated. It's not like the wealth of South Africa is solely in white hands. They say, oh no, all the wealth in South Africa is held by 8% of the population. No, that's not true. The wealth in South Africa, 90% of it is held by 1% of the population. You know what I mean? And it just so happens that some of those people are white people, but there are a whole lot of black elites that also hold the wealth of the nation, And
but they're a small number, because I also don't want to fall into the trap of confusing people with a statement that our brother Akon made on one of the podcasts.
Yeah.
To say there's more white people going through poverty in South Africa than black people, which is not true.
No, I didn't think he said that. From my interpretation, I didn't think he said that. But what he did say is that the poverty amongst the white people is exacerbated by how isolated they are, because they're a smaller number of the population. So let me put it to you in this way. Did you ever feel like you grew up poor?
No.
But you were in the township. You weren't in the suburbs. You weren't living in the white suburb, but you didn't feel like you grew up poor.
But I guess it's because of what I knew then, but also because of the hustle and how hard my parents had to work to provide a roof over my head. And as a kid, I didn't feel like I was growing up poor, because I also did not know any better.
That might be the case, right? But did you not have family?
I did.
You had cousins, So the minority of the white population, a lot of their history, a lot of their lineage is not in South Africa. So they don't have the safety net of big family roots, big family trees to give them support even when they're in poverty. When you find white South Africans that are living in poverty, they find themselves very isolated. They're even rejected by white people as well, So they're isolated. So that level of poverty that white South Africans face in South Africa is exacerbated by the fact that they don't have, a large population base and a support system. Even Social Security is very racially biased. There's provisions for Social Security that are predominantly for people of color in South Africa.
But there's a reason for that, right? To obviously fix the disparities of the past. With the previously disadvantaged from opportunities, and it's hardly been less than 30 years.
That's fine, but the previously disadvantaged are not disadvantaged because they were oppressed by all whites. They were oppressed by the government.
They were oppressed by a system.
A system, exactly. But there are people. There are people that are beholden to a system because it dominates them. They couldn't fight against that. There were many white people that tried to fight against apartheid, but they couldn't because they couldn't overcome the system. It was repressive. It was violent. It killed them. You know what I mean? And we shouldn't look at those that chose to just continue with life as if they betrayed, they betrayed the rest of us who were oppressed in those times. We should look at it as, the same as we look at the Germans. We don't blame all Germans for Hitler. You know what I mean? We don't look at a German person, and when you greet a German person, you're like, hey, you exterminated Jewish people in your country, but we don't do that. So why is it that we are now being told to demonize whiteness in South Africa? We shouldn't be doing that. We are a unified nation.
But who said you must demonize whiteness in South Africa?
No, that is the impression that I got from here. I didn't get it from back home. I'm saying that is the impression that they have, that, South Africa is not going to be free until they drive all white people to the sea. You understand what I'm saying? And we don't need that. We can live together. We can be united. We can be a rainbow nation, and we can be successful, and we can overcome racism. We can take that moral higher ground. And this is the legacy of Nelson Mandela, is to, go high when they go low. We don't need to descend into the battles of the past. We need to chart, different territory. And we need to be a beacon for the rest of the world, that these people can have differences and overcome those differences. Because it's blood in, blood out if we are at conflict and at odds. I'll say, hey, you killed my ancestor, and therefore our children must kill each other. And where does it end then? In total annihilation, you know what I mean? That's mutually assured destruction. That's madness, and we cannot continue with the madness. We need to show people a better example. And South Africa's got a golden opportunity to be that nation that exemplifies that.
But a lot of young people in South Africa right now are saying that Rainbow Nation perception was a hoax, or exactly that. It was just a perception.
No, it was a vision.
As much as it was a vision, and I understand.
Of what could be, yes.
What could have become and what could be. A lot of South Africans are saying we've been living through a facade over the past couple of decades. Is it realistic even?
But what vision is ever realistic? Was it realistic for men to have the ambition to set foot on the moon? Was it realistic? That is the ambition. That's the thing about vision. Now it's up to you and me and every other individual to make that vision a reality, because we know that vision gives our great-grandchildren a better future than our past.
If you're on the other side of the stick, are you willing to sacrifice some of your ancestral gains for equality in South Africa and that rainbow nation that you're talking about?
I mean, just look at us right now, right here. We're sacrificing time with our families. We're sacrificing a whole lot to dedicate ourselves to work that we will never see the benefit of in our lifetimes as individuals. Like, if we're looking at it, it's a great sacrifice that we're making right now to actually make this vision into a reality, to inspire others, and someone else is going to profit off of our works. We will never profit off of it. But when they do, they need to know that, there were great sacrifices that were made by people with noble intentions, and our noble intentions need to surpass or supersede our selfish aims and our selfish needs. You know what I mean? Our noble intentions need to be what drive us, instead of us being fearful of what is possible and fearful of a greater vision than what we can imagine, just because we feel like, it might be crazy. The people that are crazy enough to believe that they can change the world are the ones that usually do. Those are the words of Steve Jobs, and all of us are using iPhones today.
It's always great to hear Penuel says he's a non-racialist, and picking up from this episode, I can also safely say, you confirm that NOTA is also a non-racialist.
Yeah, no, I'm an anti-racist. You know what I mean? I don't want races to be at war. It's unnecessary, especially with what we know about one another and what we know about humanity now. We must remember that don't attribute to malice or benevolence what could more easily be attributed to insanity. So sometimes you think that people had evil intentions. No, they just were ignorant and crazy. And that's what our past is. It's a whole lot of ignorance, a whole lot of fear, a whole lot of craziness, and a whole lot of decisions that people made with limited knowledge of the world and humanity as a whole. And we're constantly discovering more and more about humanity. We're constantly discovering more and more about civilization as we construct it. It's a work in progress. It's a moving car. It's a flying plane that we're putting the wings on while it's in the air. And, if we don't put sufficient wings on it, we will crash and civilization will come to an end. And guess what? We only have ourselves to blame.
NOTA, the authority. It's good to connect with you again.
Nice to connect with you again.
Looking forward to that pre-party tonight. Oskido, Shija, Zende, and a lot of South Africans. We're partying tonight, guys.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is the big one, Medicine Square Garden, MSG, Black Coffee, the GOAT.
Yeah, exactly. So let's have fun, and I can't wait to be back here again. And yeah, shout out to all our new followers, our new subscribers. Like, subscribe, share, take little clips, put them on TikTok, make them go viral.
As I wrap up this episode, one of the beautiful, potent things our brother Trevor Noah said when he was at home just a few weeks ago, he said it was difficult for him to even get any star on their daily show. He says the one person that eventually decided to, that agreed to come as a first prominent or popular celebrity guest was Kevin Hart, who sort of believed in him. But he says a lot of people didn't immediately believe in him in the beginning, so it was tough to sort of get the daily show off the ground or get it started. But my message to young people out there, even to those broadcasters or content creators and podcasters is we do not all have to have a platform that relies on celebrities or on other guests. I love the fact that you can just sit down with somebody whom you differ with in opinions, but you always have healthy conversations with, because that is a beautiful recipe for beautiful content when people are watching. So for me, having learned through all of my experiences over the years is we're not going to come in and rely on certain guests to come and sit down here with us. For us, we've got a bigger vision, what we've been talking about over the years, and I'm excited that it's finally happening. It's not about anybody sitting here and, making us believe that we can deliver a great content, but
you can pinch yourself as well.
We can we can sit on our own and just create dope content. Which
you can't do this on the metaverse.
Same thing you can do. You can just sit with one person, create content every day or create content every week, and at some point they always say, "Build it, they will come."
Yeah,
but to create your own beautiful garden of beautiful flowers, and then the bees will come.
No, thank you so much.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you so much. And this is real. This is not AI. See, this is a real skin. I saw Mark Zuckerberg and Lex Friedman did a first VR podcast interview where they are in the VR world, with their goggles on, but they're like, it's almost realistic. It's almost as if they're in the same room.
Web 3.0.
Yeah. But we're doing this in real life, and just to prove it, like, you cannot do this on Mark Zuckerberg's thing where you can pull the skin,
Yeah.
You can't do that yet. So this is real. That's just the proof. Thank you.
No funding. We're doing it from our own pockets.
Yeah.
We're not doing it for any type of validation, but we're investing in a vision that we think other younger people right now in the future will take this path to even a higher level, because also some have walked before our path. We've been inspired by them, but it's our time right now. Thank you, bro.
Thank you.
See you guys on the next episode. The Hustlers Corner, the #1 African podcast based in New York City. We're coming up with another episode next week with the authority, NOTA, La Vida NOTA. Follow us on our social media platforms. Danko!
Yeah, Danko means we're done.